All right, let's get rolling. I appreciate everyone making the time today, whether you're live or catching this on replay later. Welcome. If you're live, please use that chat bar. I have it up. I want to see, interact with you guys. Justin, Chad, I've seen you in there. Um, Miss Porter, the 401k girls are in the house as well. So thank you for stopping by. Um, Welcome to the sixth episode, technically the fifth, because I believe Justin's didn't go off too swimmingly last week, but it's going to be on the back end. So if you missed JMac last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it was, he'll be in August, rounding it out for us. But just a little bit of housekeeping. 10-part webinar series designed to help advisors get better at working. You're correct. Say better for last there, Brandon. Help advisors get better at working in that 401k space. Same format, same goal, but to give you something practical that you can actually use in a client conversation, not just theory, not just textbook, QKA type of explanation, but something that you can actually use and essentially work with your clients on and making sure that you're keeping track of where they're at when onboarding. But you do have the Retireaholics first and third Thursday every month at 4:30. We have one coming up this week. Todd Harlow is our guest this Thursday. And essentially, I want to kind of start with where we have been, because I think it's a lot of processes and operation pieces. And how do you get a client from the jump to kind of trust you and understand you and take the meeting? And so Mark had the 401k prep, right? The sales meeting prep. JD had pick a little fight with your prospects. Like, don't just be a yes person. Just have something to come back with of a little bit of a challenge to get them to understand, like, hey, maybe we're thinking about this in a long different light. Chad with new 401k rules on how to prospect and how to use those new Secure Act 2.0, or whether there's secure credits, or ad nauseum, what our industry kind of hits home on, how to use those to your success. Justin with different record keepers, the strengths and weaknesses, kind of SWOT analysis of those record keepers. And then myself rounded out the first season with explaining those record keeping costs clearly. Like, that is all operationally how to prospect. But we're getting into the next waypoints of now, what do you do when you win it, right? So again, prep call from Mark that happened probably now 3 weeks ago is, how do you plan for that 401k? How do you fill your backpack up, right? Like, how do you really plan to have some 401ks in your book? And Justin will have the point of sale, excuse me, in August. Today we're talking about onboarding. And to me, this is the most non-operational piece, even though it is steps of operations to get everything in order. But we'll go into at a later slide, like, where I see this value of the onboarding really being the focal point of your client's experience with you as the financial advisor. You'll have JD and Chad with ongoing service model. What does that service model after year look like? And then Chad with, for rookie advisors, how do you properly prospect those 401k plans? So first, let me start by saying something I think a lot of advisors believe but won't say it loud. Once they sign, we're good. And I get it. The prospect became a client, the proposal worked, the relationship's official. It feels like the finish line, right? Like, we're good. We got all the LOIs, and yes, we have the client. But in reality, this is truly the starting line in the 401ks. The implementation is where the trust is built or lost. And onboarding is your first real test as the advisor, as the 401k team, to have that client really experience what you have to offer. And so most advisors think onboarding starts after the sale. The best ones know it is the sale. Winning the business gets the signature, but implementation earns that trust. That trust is what every client story you're going to tell at a conference, every referral, every renewal that happens without your conversation necessarily, it all starts right here in this first 6 weeks. So today isn't about onboarding operations process. It's about onboarding as a sales strategy, winning the business, and how to make sure that trust is built. Okay, Mike Webb, first impression, onboarding, absolutely. All right, so what actually happens after someone says yes? One of the most common mistakes advisors make, honestly, I've made it too, is treating implementation as if it's one thing, right? Oh, it's implementation. It's over here. Um, it sounds simple, but where are you going to set it up, right? Like who's going to be setting up the platform? What team do you have behind you? So then the first initial step in implementation is actually, again, even though you're kind of doing it in the prospecting and you're maybe running some tax analysis like we do when we collect census, but that census isn't perfect, right? It doesn't have addresses and social security numbers and whether they were an HCE last year or not. It's just very basic census data of like, hey, let's get some projection of tax strategy here so that we can have that conversation to win the business. But now clients will be like, well, I already sent you that information. And knowing that data gathering is actually a little bit more in implementation because now it's real, right? Now it's the record keepers trying to put together Devin's actual, I keep reaching for the accuracy button. Devin's actual account, right? Where his safe harbor bucket's going to be, where his personal deferral bucket and profit sharing bucket's going to be. So the census, the payroll files, the existing plan documents, if it's a takeover, the investment details. You have next the plan design confirmation, the eligibility, the match structure, the safe harbor, vesting, auto features. All of those things we've already discussed. All of those things, but now it's actually putting it pen to paper, signing the ERISA or the adoption agreement, right? And then what does that platform and payroll setup look like? The system configuration that I talked about, the integration, the test runs of the integration, the validation of that integration. Uh, it's probably 1 to 2 weeks after live that an actual integration piece with a record keeper works full 360. Whereas, there's different types of options out there, and we'll go through those at a later slide, but that are a little bit more streamlined. But then again, where's that consulting piece in the front end? So then you have go live, right? You have the employee communication, the enrollment, the first contributions. Most delays don't happen because someone dropped the ball. They happen because someone thought they were already in phase three, the platform and payroll setup, when they haven't even sent in data where the record keeper can actually build out those different buckets, right? Let's just call them safe harbor bucket, profit sharing bucket, different contribution bucket. Um, so we want to emphasize like clients are not buying a plan, they're building one. And so when you get into this step of implementation, this is, like I said in the previous, this is where the trust, the honesty, the integrity that you proposed in the beginning actually comes to light. And knowing that as an advisor, knowing that you have partners around you to help you and you're the quarterback and you're just the person that needs to be, at the wheel at that point. I tell most of my advisors, like, I'll take you from A to implementation, but at implementation, that is the advisor relationship, right? Like that is where you build that trust. So quick overview of implementation roadmap, right? So let's make it a little concrete. Let's take a startup plan because it's easiest, right? They don't have anything. What's it going to look like for zero to hero, right? So again, all that data collection, the payroll information, existing plan documents. If this drags, everything will drag. The census will drag, like everything will drag in the setup, which if you see on the bottom here, I have, what we have this little Excel sheet that we use and we send out to clients of trying to set that expectation in the beginning. But start up 6 to 8 weeks. This is getting a little bit easier and quicker. Take over 7 to 10 because there's blackout notices and an actual 30-day blackout period. TPA switches and broker record switches can be pretty easy and quick. And then you have now, right, Secure 2.0, that conversation of how do we win more business and communication styles that Chad went over is the 6 to 8 week timeline, because you have to turn off the simple and turn on the 401k contributions, and they have to know their limits, and you have to have a safe harbor provision in there, so 30-day notice for that. So there's every plan is different timeline, but again, this just gives you a high level overview of a startup, right? The foundation, the team assembly in week, really we try to get 1 and 2 together. And then jump in plan design and signing that 5500, or signing the 5500, getting the adoption agreement finalized and signed. And then you have to prep. It says mail here. I always love that we still technically do paper notices, but enrollment notices are most likely now PDFs and sent out via email. But fee disclosures have to be delivered to participants. And then you have launch activities, right? You have the enrollment meetings. It's great. You got everything set up and how do people access their account? How do they actually get in there, right? So enrollment meeting scheduled, hosted, payroll training call. That's a big one, especially if there's not integrations, or even if there is integrations and maybe you're using a third party. Maybe you're using payroll integrations as a company. Maybe you're using 360 payroll integrations is another one, right? Like, how do those interact? Who's keeping track of the payroll data feeds that are coming in and out? Essentially, again, I go back to the advisor isn't having to do all of this, but the advisor is strongly that general contractor, and making sure that project manager, if you will, making sure those subcontractors out there are doing what they're saying that they're going to do. Okay. So I wanted to get into 2 ways of onboarding, essentially. Um, and before I do that, I really wanted to call out here our team at Plan Design. Lance and David, I think, have I mean, they have a stellar job, and they do a stellar job at what they do. Um, but they are so undervalued. Like Lance and David on our team here at PDC, I thank you for doing all of this, because a lot of the times we're working with new advisors, and that new advisor is working through, how do I make a process? Like, what am I doing? And a lot of the times, us on the consulting team, we get through that proposal stage, right? The A to implementation. And then we have to we keep tabs on it because Lance and David are so good at keeping us in the loop. But we tend to have to look elsewhere and be like, okay, how do we help prospect? How do we get more in the door? How do we help the next advisor, or the next plan sponsor for you, kind of come in? And so essentially Lance and David take over the implementation, really help advisors see the light of what's going on. So I just want to take a spotlight there to really thank our team here at PDC. I think you guys do a stellar job, and I know that you've helped me out tremendously over the last 3.5 years. So thank you. So 2 ways of onboarding. Yeah, bundled, unbundled. We all know this, right? Um, Bundled can be great at times, unbundled can be great at times. They each have their own right, but just know, as a new advisor, as that onboarding step is coming in, they're different processes, right? Onboarding, it's single point of contact. It's a 1-800 number and maybe a team email approach. You have one bill, one person kind of reaching out and invoicing. It's quick and easy, quote unquote. You take like an ADP or Paychex. They have the payroll, the census, all of the first step that we on the unbundle side talk about of like being crucial. They essentially already have, and they can just feed it right in. But let's say necessarily the front end, maybe the consulting, maybe the plan design wasn't perfect, or whatever the case may be, right? There's pros and cons to each, but that method is the 15 minutes or less method, right? The Geico method, if you will. Unbundled, if you're not properly communicating with each other, they can talk, we can talk past each other essentially, right? Like plan design is trying to get that plan design meeting scheduled so that we can figure out what the safe harbor, what the match, what the um, safe harbor non-elective is, what profit sharing, what vesting schedule do you want? Do you want allocation conditions? Like all of these things in the plan design matter to where we can fill in the plan digest as at the record keeper and be able to tell them how to map everything, right? So a little bit of talking over and through things. So making sure that everyone's on the same page and in the right timeline is very essential. Um, and the client feels when the advisor is not a part of it, the client feels stuck in the middle, right? Like you have plan design reaching out, you have a record keeper reaching out, maybe you have payroll integrations reaching out, and the client's sitting there like, I have 3 or 4 different people. It can happen on the bundled side, right? There can be 3 or 4 different people there, but at least it's coming from one logo, one email, if you will. But on the unbundled side, you can really feel disjointed and not a team if multiple emails and communications are rolling out without the advisor really kind of prefacing and setting that expectation. All right. So am I on the right slide? I think I am. Yeah. Okay. I want to say key takeaways here. Yeah, key takeaways. I'm on the right side. Okay, cool. All right, let me bring this home. 3 things I want from you today. Step one, set expectations clearly and early as possible. Implementation is not just that one event. There's multiple owners, multiple phases. Nobody's owning the communication. If no one's owning the communications, it can go sideways, right? Um, Step two is own your communications. Most delays come from unclear ownership and not incompetence. The advisor who checks in proactively is the one the clients don't get frustrated with. Hey, how's this going? How's that going? I know you're setting up a call with plan design. I haven't seen anything come through. Hey, plan design, where are you guys at with the setup call, right? Like own those communications. It is a thoughtful process here. And then know your process, right? The advisor who communicates clearly wins more than the one who promises quickly. Expectation management is a soft skill, it is a strategy of sales. And the fourth one that I didn't want to put on here is know your partner's process, right? Like be an expert enough to be savvy in what plan design does and what we're going to be taking care of. And if we drop the ball on something, being able to be like, hey, pick your game up here. Like you guys normally do this and you didn't do this on here. And so not knowing every little intricate detail, but know your partners. And we like to say at least 3, right? 3 bundled solutions, 3 unbundled in the sense of record keeper, TPA, like whatever, like 3 each, if you will. So that way you can understand, okay, if I have a client that needs this, I can go to them because they do that well. And if I have a client that's high touch and really needs hand holding, I can go here with this team. And if any one of those communications break down at some point, you have an extra piece to pull in and say, hey, I can go over here with them. And I can maybe try and plug some holes where someone else may have fallen through. So yeah, yeah, that's a very great point, JD. A great advisor will be the quarterback, and if they do a great job, the client falls in love with them. It's absolutely true. Um, I want to close with some housekeeping, if you will. And we have about 10 minutes that I want to give back to everyone here. But I also want some questions, comments. And so I see Cindy, I will answer your question in a second. So in case you're busy in the beginning and you just got here midway through, our next webinar is Tuesday, July 7th by JD. Our next Retire Holics is Thursday, June 18th, which is this Thursday at 4:30. All our previous webinars are on plandesign.com / 401k EXP. Go ahead and watch the recordings there. Look back through anything, but I really want to leave off on kind of JD's point and really this slide here where most advisors think onboarding starts after the sale, but everyone knows that the good ones know that it is the sell. So to answer Cindy's question under step one, would add established assigned roles and responsibilities for each entity involved in onboarding project and ongoing? Absolutely. Right. That's part of that kind of setting the team expectations. Let me go back to that slide here. Right here. Initial meeting with team, new client collection, census data, payroll information, and adding that who has what role, right? Is it the TPA? Is it the TPA and the plan sponsor? Is it the all three parties, right? Is it the record keeper on top of that? Adding those responsibilities on which step is very crucial. So thank you for that point, Cindy. Bo, from the TPA perspective, what few record keepers handle the onboarding process best? Man, that's a great question. Um, I think the ones that have been around, the longest have their process vetted out very well and are well established, right? You have your American Funds, your Voyas, your Empowers, your John Hancocks, like their onboarding process is vetted. Can it be old at times? Yes, but they're actively changing things and getting more future tech. And it's good that the bundle providers are helping push that kind of growth within the industry. But those teams have the implementation down. They've been doing it forever, just like us. 51 years, like we know what we're doing when it comes to implementation. Are there things that we can tighten up and button up? Of course, there always is. Um, yeah, and in to JD's point, it is very much based on a who the record keeper are, how vetted there's and then essentially who the person is, right? Who's that point of contact at that record keeper? How long they've been there? How many different things have they seen? Just like here at PDC, the thing I love about our implementation team is they've been here forever. Like Lance has been with PDC for 15 years. Like he's seen everything, been able to. I just saw him going back and forth with a cash balance plan that we were doing and the client wanted more and in the implementation process after the proposal process, right? And he's handling that conversation, keeping me in tab and keeping the advisor in tab. But having a team that knows how to communicate and talk through those certain situations, absolutely. Has Lance ever been in the chat part? No, he's busy with plans. We're out here cooking. PDC's cooking this year. Tech shops are efficient and clean install, but fall anywhere there's complications. Tenured shops have the depth to get help of curveballs. Boutique record keepers often have great tenure and that the role and covered both well. So very well stated, Chad. Thank you very much for feedback. So running up on about 7 minutes here. I see people kind of dropping off and I want to give you back that time that I promised. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being active in the chat bar. We hope to see you on Retireaholics on Thursday. Please, if you need anything, reach out to us. And again, to our implementation team, our onboarding team, thank you so much for everything that you do. And yeah, have a great week. Thanks, guys.